Hey guys, my annual ritual happened and I kept procrastinating while the car was in the shop, trying to lie to myself, oh, I'll make a video tomorrow, and guess what? Never ended up making a video. Wanted to share this one with you because it's a big one. About a week ago, I was driving down the interstate. Here, I'll sit down for a minute, and then I'll pop the hood and open it. I'll show you guys. About a week ago, I was driving down. It wasn't an interstate. It was like an old highway, but pretty much just left the shop. Did an oil change on this car. Got out of the shop, and all of a sudden, all the systems shut down. So I hit this old highway, and I would punch the car, and as soon as I punched it, all the systems would shut down. I'm like, what the heck is that? I'd pull over, popped the hood, checked everything. I just did an oil change. I mean, what possibly could I've messed up with the system? So I looked around the alternator, the batteries, everything's tight, nothing's loose, nothing's shorting out. And it was as if something was shorting out. I mean, all the systems shut down on the car. So I got back in the car, started up, everything's fine. 5 minutes down the road, I'm like, okay, it was some kind of dumb glitch. And deep inside, I know that crap doesn't happen. There ain't no dumb glitch. There's a reason for that glitch, I punched the car again, and punch as in hit the go pedal again, and sure as heck, everything shuts down again. Blinkers don't work, horn doesn't work. Nothing works. Your windshield wipers, your windows, nothing works whatsoever. Your power steering even shuts down somehow. I thought I had a mechanically driven power steering, but somehow that even shuts down. Weird, right? Anyway, so this is actually exactly a week ago. This was Saturday. Came home, messed around with the car, just couldn't find nothing. Couldn't find any wires. It almost feels like as soon as the car goes, and then a second later, and like something shorts out. Fast forward, I came home, dinked around with the car for another hour. Couldn't figure anything out. I said, screw it, I'll just drive it. Next day, which was Sunday, I was supposed to go to Tri-Cities, which is about a couple hours from Spokane, 150 miles. I'm like, I'll just take the car, right? Smart idea. Take the broken car that's unknown issues with it and take it out to out of town. But anyways, I'd get on the freeway gradually, nothing would happen, and I floored it once and nothing happened. I'm like, oh, well, I guess the car got over its fit. Well, sure as heck, second time when I punched it, that wasn't the case. Shut down all the systems, and there's no exit for about a mile and a half, and it was pretty tight traffic. I didn't want to pull over on the side. I had a car full of people, 3 kids in the back and my wife up front. So, I pulled it off to the exit. Same story, popped the hood, just went through all the fuses, make sure nothing's loose in there, make sure the fuse box itself isn't loose. I had a issue with my truck where the fuse box got loose. That's a story for another time. Just popped it back in place and everything went normal. But anyways, couldn't figure it out. So I got this app called Torque. You got the free one, it's called Torque Lite or something like that, and then you pay $5 for the other one, and it has more options. Well, anyways, I turned on vital information, like throttle position, just a few others, and I made sure to put the voltage in there. And for German cars to be pushing 13.7, 13.8 is on the high side. They don't really like that, but that is, being mechanically inclined, that is acceptable voltage. It's on the high side of acceptable, and just a generic acceptable. For a German, that's pretty high. They don't like that kind of voltage, but I knew that wasn't the reason why the car was shutting down all of a sudden. So while this thing was recording, I was driving and I punched it a few times, and the car did weird things. Like sometimes it would take off, sometimes it wouldn't. And what I mean by that, like it would downshift and go, but it wouldn't. Sometimes it wouldn't, like, let's say, push us hard. Sometimes they reserve 10%, 20, 30% of power. Something was going on. Well, after driving for about 10 minutes recording this thing, I looked down on my gauges. I opened up my phone. Very safe thing to do, right? I look at my phone and I noticed that for a split second, the voltage got up to 15.5 or 15.8, something like that. And it dropped right back down. and it shows you recorded, you know, lowest and highest. I'm like, well, that's weird. So I reset it, and I just continuously tried watching it. I mean, I'm driving a car here on the freeway, you know, so I can't really give it all 100. I was very meticulous, and I still couldn't see it. I did not see the voltage at 16, but once again, the recorder recorded it being at 16. And it's at that point that the car shuts down all the systems. So me taking out the car out of town was a good thing. Could have been a bad thing, but it was a good thing. So sure as hell turned out to be my alternator. Never suspected it, but it was about that time. The way the alternators die on this thing, they just quit charging usually, but this time it decided to be tricky on me and start overcharging my systems. So that's my story, but that's not the end of it. Guys, I always had an issue with this car. I think the guy's name's Legit Cars or something like that. He's on YouTube. He has a E55. I think it's a black one as well, and he's at the same spot where I'm at, you know. It has race IQ tunes and everything. Every time the car would shift, it would hold back. It's almost like it's a safety perimeter. And I have to say the same thing as him. Like, it's fine at full throttle, but like, why under light throttle? You know, my cars did the same thing. I mean, guys, hear me out. This is all tied in together. So, at quarter throttle, this thing sprints pretty good, right? But at quarter throttle, every shift, it would like shift and hold back for a second, then it would release. Like, any non-car guy would understand that. Like, my wife understands that, feels it. So keep that in mind. I could never fix that. You know, I talked to Anthony. He threw different tunes at me. That never got taken care of. I had another issue on top of that, is when I would give it heavy throttle and start backing off the throttle, the thing would buck. Like, it's weird. Like, it wouldn't like linearly pull out of throttle, but it would buck. It's weird. It's like, you know, I know my motor mounts are gonna go quicker. Like, it's bad. It was pretty violent. Like, if the guy just went full throttle, full ham, and let off the throttle, it would have been pretty bad. If you go full ham and back off the throttle, it would be, you know, less violence. I don't know if that's properly said or not, but yeah. Well, guess what? This time around, about the alternator, you know, back to the story of the alternator. I'm done with my problems. This time around, I said, you know, AutoZone has a great program. 5 years ago, my alternator went out, and dealership wanted, I think, about $1,000. I think that's what I was quoted back then. And here's AutoZone offering an alternator at $200, you know, lifetime warranty and all the 9 yards. And it's like, well, it doesn't make sense. An alternator is an alternator. But no, guys, that's where I was wrong. All these years I've been running with an aftermarket alternator, and this being so electronically tedious, you know, all the Mercedes sensitive, let's just call it this way. Let's call it that. Being electronically sensitive, I've done myself wrong, guys. So my bucking and my holding back between shifts was resolved with an alternator. Believe it or not. I don't care if you believe it. I'm just trying to help you guys out there that are wondering. So the input or something was going on, or maybe a variances, like a voltage, like it wasn't consistent or something, was throwing the computer off. Guys, I don't know how, but I gave up on AutoZone's stuff. I went in there, asked for a store manager, asked him, hey, bring up my whole history. Look how many times you guys have swapped this out. You guys have a great warranty system, but it ain't working out for me. You know, what can you do for me? He's like, well, I'll give you your money back. I'm like, well, all right, let's do that. So got my money, never got my core. Obviously, I can't put that on them. Like, oh, I want my core back 5 years later. You know, they're not going to hold on to it. They got to rebuild those things and make their money. So I went out to Mercedes and paid $5,000, give or take, about somewhere in that neighborhood. And I couldn't be happier, man. And also, Mercedes stands behind their product. They don't just warranty out the parts. They also warranty out the labor. Which, shoot, I wish I knew 5 years ago. I'd let them have that grand. All these years, once a year, every year, I'd spend so much time. Well, I'm a professional at, you know, changing out these alternators now. But I wish I was a professional something else rather than wasting time and going, you know, beating around the bush here, fixing the same thing over and over once a year, every year. So, in this video, I also decided to include a little how to do an alternator. I know this is stupid for guys that have done it, but hear me out, whoever's interested in it. The way I find it to be most convenient is I pick up this thing, you know, pick up the front end, respectfully off the ground, you know, whatever floor jack allows it pretty much. I'll put it on jack stance, get underneath, drop the first and the middle plastic, pull the plug on the alternator, and then unbolt the terminal. So 2 wires, undo them from the alternator, and pull out the bottom bolt while you're under there. You could do it from up top as well, but I did it while I was under there. It's very inconvenient. You got to get one of them ratcheting wrenches. Guys, don't start unbolting stuff and getting things out of your way. Yeah, that makes sense, but doing this so many times, you're still gonna win. Going with a little ratcheting, I believe it was an 11 millimeter, and just, you know, little by little, you know, spend 2-3 minutes undoing that bolt, but then you don't have to mess with the other, you know, brackets. I think the oil lines get in the way under there. Yeah, you're gonna say, you know, undo a bolt, drop those oil lines, but they don't really give you what you need. That's the bottom line of that. So tough it out there, come up here, undo these bolts, these 3 bolts, pull this thing out, you know, free up the radiator, do this, same here, and in my case it would be just this bolt. You guys would probably have 3, average, you know, stock guys. You know, and this thing, literally, I just flip it back. So flip it like that, and the radiator theoretically should be free in there, but it's not that free. Come in, well, for a guy like me, you know, move, undo the clamp under here, get this out of the way, and then pull that pulley off. You see that pulley, those 2 pulleys, which pulls off that pulley because of my modification. Well, what the heck, might as well show you guys. Because of my modification, you know, I ended up pulling that off because I have the wrap kit. That's all I do. Pull those 2 pulleys off, and then get the hoses out of the way. You'll have these 2 hoses, then you have the radiator pump here. You guys know what I'm talking about. Oh, shoot. Maybe you don't. How do I turn on a flashlight on this thing? Nope, can't do that. Okay, whatever. You guys know there's a little pump right in here. I mean, you could even see the little hose clamp shining in there. But so that one, move those hoses out of the way, and undo the top bolt on the alternator. You know, while obviously I skipped a step of belts, but once you pull these off, clearly the belts are going to be off. So guys, before you strip anything out, you know, loosen up these belts. This belt, the supercharger belt, and the serpentine belt. Release them so you don't have an intention. Pull this bolt. Anyways, do the top bolt onto the alternator, and have someone come in here and literally right here grab onto the radiator, not onto this, but the radiator itself, and give it a little tug. Reposition the alternator in a certain position where it barely, like, it just barely hooks onto the corner, the top corner where the bolt would go into the alternator. It's gonna bump into that. But make sure you got positioning right. There's 3 positions you could go with. Go for the one that, you know, provides the least resistance. And literally, if someone comes in here and just gives it a little tug, not all its might, a tug here, that alternator just comes right up. That's the way I do my alternators. I pulled my alternator out for about 45 minutes. That's what it took me to pull the alternator out. Obviously, I have a big old pan when you start pulling all these clamps. That's why, rewind the tape, first thing I do is get under there so I don't have coolant dripping in my face. That's why I come up here. Pull these hoses off, you know, have all like a big old tub underneath like I did, and cut all the coolant so you don't have a mess in your shop or garage or whatever you're working at. So yeah, that's my story, guys. If you have any questions, shoot them. I'll do my best to answer them in a timely fashion. About my E63, I will make a video shortly about that. A story to tell. One I wish I could make up. Anyways, that's all I have to say. You know, I'm very happy. Heck with the money. You know, I paid 2-3 times as much as AutoZone alternator is. I wish I knew. They say use genuine parts. It's true most of the time, not all the time. So I was going off of that. Didn't give it much thought, you know. Alternator's an alternator. Either a charger that doesn't. Seems like there's more to it with a Mercedes. Learned that the hard way. And without even experiencing this, I'll tell you, you know, it's a Mercedes. You should probably go with OEM alternator. Says Paul, but yet uses the AutoZone one. Like, that's just stupid. I knew better. Should have known better. Should have given more thought. You know, you know how it is when it comes to yourself. You're just like, okay, let's get it done. And then when it goes for somebody else, you're actually thinking it through. Anyways, guys, that's it. That's my story. I wish I helped I hope I helped somebody, and I wish I learned sooner. But this car is back to being refined, and I'm happy. I'm actually gonna go out and do a few pulls with my buddy on the CTSV. As always, fellas, God bless y'all, and have a mighty fine day. Ciao, bye.